This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me is Anders, going to give us this week's topics.
Brad Holmes' first draft is in the books. Let's talk about it. It's a Fan Report.
All right, well, it was a big week. What?
Quick and simple.
Yes. It was a big week for Lions fans this past week. We started to kind of get an idea of what the philosophy of this team is going to be, or the philosophy of how they're building this team is going to be. After the first round, let me put it this way. Last week we talked about our ideal situations for the Lions. What would make us happy?
And we both had the same
round one. And that scenario that both of us had laid out came true. We got our guy. We got Penei Sewell. We had a philosophy of build from within and build out from there. And that's exactly what the Lions did, even further than I expected them to.
Yep, they stuck with it.
They did. And I'll be honest with you, it made sense when I pictured Dan Campbell. All right, I'm picturing Dan Campbell and what I would think his ideals and his philosophy on how to build a football team would be, just based on the opening presser he did. It's on roughness, toughness, and grit in the trenches.
You miss Buddy kneecaps.
I figured that was implied. And that's exactly what he did. He went after guys who are going to be tough in the middle, guys who are going to set the tone along in the trenches, and the Lions are looking at a situation where they are looking to dominate you physically on every single play.
So this is where I want to kick this off. I've heard some criticism from Lions fans. It's a minority, it's a vast minority, but I've seen it, that building from within, building from the trenches, is an outdated philosophy on building a winning football team. Do you think there's any merit to that argument?
Tell it to the Kansas City Chiefs, who were down how many offensive linemen and lost the Super Bowl as a result. You win in the trenches. It's a fact. It is not a quote unquote outdated philosophy. It's a fact. It is always going to be a fact as long as there is touching in football. As long as there is physical contact in the game of football, it is going to be the philosophy.
No, I agree with you 100%. It's funny that you brought the Chiefs, though, because that's what a lot of the people who are arguing it were pointing to, was it's the Chiefs who don't have like studs on the interior. They're mostly built from the outside.
Anybody who doesn't believe the Chiefs have studs on the offensive line is an idiot. And on their defensive
they have Eric
line,
Fisher.
Who got hurt. They had another tackle who got hurt, or their center is either an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler. They have elite level talent on their offensive line, and they didn't have that in the Super Bowl, and look what happened. The greatest quarterback since Joe Montana, John Elway, whatever you want to call it, couldn't do shit.
And you know who had elite talent on the defensive line? The guys who won the Super Bowl.
Exactly. That's it. If they want to use the Chiefs as an example, that is one of the worst arguments you could ever make. And the reason I say it is because that just goes to show that building from the trenches is so incredibly important. So incredibly important. In terms of two factors there. Because one, yes, they're not the flashiest. Why? Because they're offensive linemen. Everything else around the Chiefs flourishes and is extremely flashy and gathers all the attention. Little known fact about the Chiefs, they have really, really good guys in the trenches. Eric Fisher's a Hall of Famer. Borderline, but a Hall of Famer. The center that they have.
He was a number 1 overall pick as an offensive lineman.
Exactly. I don't know how anyone can argue that they don't have a lot invested in their offensive line, and two, top tier talent on that offensive line. And look what happened when you took it away. When that offensive line talent went away, what happened to the greatest quarterback in the greatest offense in the history of football? It died miserably.
Yeah.
And pathetically. They couldn't do anything against Tampa Bay with all the injuries on the offensive line. Tampa Bay was in the backfield all game long. And then, case in point, even further with the Chiefs. That is such a bad example for those people to use as an argument because I can shoot it down 3 ways. I just did it twice. I'm going to do it a third time. What did the Chiefs do this offseason? What did the Chiefs do this offseason? Invested big money to go get themselves another left tackle. Big money to go get Trent Brown. I believe that's who they got. I could be wrong on that. Maybe I'm thinking of the Niners, but I believe it was Trent Brown they went and got. No, the Patriots went and got Trent Brown. I don't know. Chiefs made a move to go get themselves a big time left tackle.
Twitter.
No,
two
Chiefs
Twitter one.
Hang on a minute.
I think I again, I don't agree with the argument, but I think what they're getting at is like,
Orlando Brown. I knew it was a Brown. Orlando Brown is who they went and got from the Ravens.
Isn't that the guy who plays Eddie on That's So Raven?
I don't know. I don't really watch that show anymore.
No one watches it anymore, but we all used to watch it as kids.
Let's see here. What did the Chiefs go and give up for Orlando Brown? By the way, Orlando Brown is a 2-time Pro Bowler. Just throwing that out there. Let's see. So I did shoot it down. 4 draft picks the Chiefs used to go get him. 4, including their first overall pick, their number 31 pick. That tells you right there how important an offensive line is to a team just as good as the Chiefs. So that argument that the Chiefs are the reason you don't need to develop from the trenches clearly shows, like, those people who are trying to make that argument clearly do not watch football and don't know a damn thing about it. Because the argument that they're using of the Chiefs, well, I just proved it wrong 3 different ways. And so did they. So yes, I do like the philosophy of the Lions.
Yeah, I think the reason that people bring up the Chiefs is because it's so the first thing you think about the Chiefs is modern NFL offense with just airs it out, doesn't really focus on the run, doesn't really have much of a ground attack. You know, they have the talent there to do it. I think that's why a lot of people are pointing to the Chiefs and
sure, wonderful, but it's only successful because of the offensive line talent that they have. Look what happens when it's gone.
You wonder though, with that offensive line talent, why they don't run the ball more. Like, it doesn't,
because they don't need to. Like, if you don't need to, don't. If you don't need to run the ball and eat the clock and you can score 100 points a game based on your air game, why would you? Don't. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, but thing is though, is yeah, you can point to their modern offense and how good it is, but again, if you take away the offensive line, what does that top tier offense do? Not a goddamn thing. And they proved that in the Super Bowl by losing all that talent along the O-line. And then the Buccaneers were in the backfield and putting Pat Mahomes on his ass all game long. Pat Mahomes had to throw sidearm falling down away from the receiver, hit a man in the face, and he still dropped it while getting hit. Even a hero like that can't win a game without an offensive line. The greatest talent at quarterback that we've seen in how many years? Maybe in our lifetime. Without his O-line, he ain't shit.
Let's talk about Penei Sewell real quick. If Penei Sewell is as good in the pros as advertised, you're looking at a line of Penei Sewell at right tackle, Taylor Decker at left tackle. Your guards are Jonah Jackson, who was a stud last year, and Logan Stenberg. Then you have Frank Ragnow at center, who was also a stud last year. You got 3, maybe 4 guys that I would consider almost studs on your offensive line.
I'll tell you right now, one is a guaranteed, like, guy is a generational type talent at center in Frank Ragnow. He's an all-pro. Frank Ragnow is a perennial all-pro type center as long as he stays healthy.
Yep.
Taylor Decker is at the very least a very solid to very good left tackle.
Yep.
Signed. On pay, like he's already locked in. Frank Ragnow's they picked up his option. He's probably going to be re-signed. They're going to pay him big bucks. Probably make him the highest paid interior lineman ever. And they should.
So what's the ceiling with this offensive line as currently constructed?
Oh, as currently constructed, my expectations for that O-line going into the season are they better be in the top 10, flirting with the top 5. Because that's what that talent level screams to me. That offensive line has to be damn good, and I fully expect them to be one of the premier offensive lines in this league. Without question in my mind.
I think if Penei Sewell hits the ground running, they are one of the premier offensive lines in this league.
I agree 100%. Sure, they need to still shore up that right side a little bit, maybe go find a guard in free agency or in a trade, or maybe in next year's draft you get your guy at the guard position. Then you're looking at an offensive line that's, even better. But as it is now, it sure looks pretty damn good. Like, I'm the way that line looks, because the left side was already really good. Like, from the middle, left was solid. At worst, solid. At best, damn good. Like, great. Now that right side, you add Panay Sewell to that. You maybe have to shore up the right guard position a little bit. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe you got something in Stenberg or whoever else goes in there. It's looking pretty damn good if you ask me. And I'm excited to see what those big bodies do there. And Jared Goff better be saying, thank God I got brought to Detroit because I'm going to get an opportunity to succeed with that type of protection.
Yeah, I think we're number one receiver away from having a really, really good offense and being able to just focus on getting a quarterback after that to put us over the edge. But
that's if Jared Goff doesn't pan out. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, like you said, we are one number one receiver away. If he had a true number one receiver on this team, there'd be no excuse for Jared Goff. If he doesn't succeed in 2 years, you go find a different guy. But I tell you, I really do think he would be able to succeed in this offense with Dan Campbell as his coach, with the offensive line that he's got. And if he had a weapon, and he's got TJ Hawkinson, he's got DeAndre Swift, but he needs a number one receiver. If he had that, you could be looking at a really, really good offense this year. If he had that number one receiver, he doesn't. So maybe we'll see that next year. But he's going to get the opportunity to succeed, and there's going to be no excuses for Jared Goff here. None. Mm-hmm.
We do suddenly have a kind of hole at our second tight end position because Josh Hill suddenly retired. And so it's really just TJ Hawkinson and a bunch of nobodies. So.
Well, we traded Jesse James, didn't we? Or did we cut him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jesse James is no longer on the team. It was TJ Hawkinson and Josh Hill filling the Jesse James role, but then Josh Hill just retired.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they'll bring in a guy that's a UDFA and.
Well, they apparently brought in Darren Fells for a workout.
You don't think Hunter Thedford or Elise Mack are going to make the team?
I can't say they're not going to make the team.
I don't know who they are.
I've never heard of them.
I've never heard of them either. They'll
we did bring in two UDFAs in Brock Wright and Jake Hausman. Couldn't tell you anything about them.
They brought in a receiver as a UDFA, didn't they?
They brought in a few receivers as UDFAs.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that they can go and find a guy. Oh, by the way, the right guard's probably going to be Big Daddy V Vaitai.
You think he takes it over Stenberg?
Stenberg's not even. He's listed as a left guard on their depth chart.
I see him listed as a right guard on the depth chart.
Which website are you on?
The only one that ever has it updated in time, which is Our Lads.
Which is who?
Our Lads.
I've never heard of that. I'm on ESPN.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got the offensive line looking like Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Halapu, Levati, Vaitai, and then Panay Sewell rounding it out on the right side. So I have actually heard that Vaitai is going to be sliding inside to right guard. Still think you may need to shore it up unless Vaitai can prove that he is able to take a stronghold of that position. But I'll tell you right now, I really do think that looks like a really, really strong offensive line. And it better be because there's a lot of money invested in that offensive line at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Between Vaitai's contract, between Decker's contracts, Panay Sewell was a first-round pick, Jonah Jackson as a I believe, third-round draft pick last year. And then you also have Frank Ragnow, who just had his fifth-year option picked up. Then he's going to be paid. There's a lot of money invested in that O-line, so they better be good, and I fully expect them to be.
Now you got me curious. Like now I'm just pulling up random depth charts.
I thought I had heard that Vaitai was going to slide over to the right guard position and be the starter.
He might. He very well might. CBS has Stenberg.
I think last year that they had actually moved him over to the right guard position quite a bit. But it was primarily because he was banged up a little bit. But that just does tell me that he's able to slide over and he's got some familiarity with the position. So.
Yeah, but it's really interesting because CBS has Stenberg, NBC has Vaitai. It looks like the's probably
going to be a camp battle. And I fully expect there to be a camp battle between Stenberg and Vaitai at the right guard position. And, you know, it looks like each guy is going to be making a position move. Stenberg from left to right side and on the interior lineman position, which really isn't that big of a move. And then Vaitai moving from the outside to the inside on the right side of the line. So I would think that might even be a little bit tougher of a move than Stenberg's would be, but either way, it's going to be. It does sound like it's going to be a position battle there. I really hope. I'll be honest with you. I really kind of hope Vaitai wins the job because then it wasn't just wasted money like we did with Rick Wagner. But either way, I want to see that money, all that money we gave him to make him, I believe, the highest paid right tackle in football, I want it to be seen that it's used somewhere. I don't want it to go to waste.
The other guy, unless you have anything else to say on tonight's stool, the other guy I really want to highlight, and we'll just go a little more general, is Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle that we took in the second round. And really, I just want to highlight him because of the quote he gave, which immediately made me like him. He said, and I quote, "I like fucking people up. I like to get off the line and just put my helmet or hands on offensive linemen and fuck up an offensive scheme pretty much. I like pushing them back 2-3 yards, just making them feel like shit." I mean,
I love it. I love the mindset. He So the thing that there's as the draft went on, it seemed to be a theme with a lot of these guys that the type of player that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes were targeting seems to be those guys that just love to be disruptors, love to get in your face, are tough, rugged, not afraid to get hit, and then get back up and bite you in the knee on the way up or punch you in the mouth. And that's exactly what you got and openly got in Levi Onwuzurike. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm sure we'll get used to it. It's going to be another one of those, like, how do you pronounce Halapulavati? Or how do you pronounce Indamakin the right way? I mean, I remember that was a debacle when he first got here, but I hope he's, as successful as it can be. And I'll be honest with you, he's being brought into a situation that he's going to be set up to succeed here. Yeah. Getting to learn behind a true pro, a consummate pro at his position in Michael Brockers will make a big difference for a young player like that. Because Michael Brockers is still a very smart, very effective, really good defensive lineman and the interior. And that's what he's going to show this young kid, that he's going to teach him, he's going to coach him, he's going to help him, and that's going to allow him to kind of get into a rhythm with things and learn the right way to do things along the line. And that's something that I'm going to be looking out for a lot, is how much of an impact Michael Brocker is going to have on that young kid's career. Yeah,
no, and I have a strong feeling that that Dan Campbell was the one behind this pick.
Oh, I do too.
We can move on, because I can't honestly say that I know much about the player. I didn't really watch him in college, but outside of the draft analysis,
it seemed that the Lions kind of went off the normal board for some of their picks, like Levi Onwuzurike. God, that's going to be so tough to say. It seemed that maybe there was other players on some people's boards. Maybe the Lions wanted to. Maybe people thought the Lions were going to go receiver there. I mean, there were quite a few available at that spot. You could even have argued for Asante Samuel Jr. to go there to shore up the defensive secondary, or a linebacker. I mean, Rondale Moore at wide receiver was available. You had a plethora of linebackers available. You had edge rushers available. Lots of wide receivers available between Rondale Moore, Dwayne Eskridge. You also had Nico Collins, who ended up going later on in the third round. I mean, there's a lot of good name wide receivers at that spot. So to see the Lions go with the defensive lineman really kind of showed how much of an emphasis they're going to put on the philosophy of building from within in the trenches and then building out from there. I don't think the Lions end up getting a receiver till the fourth round.
I think it was back in the third or early fourth that we took the Amon Ra out of USC. Fourth round. I know we brought in Javon McKinley as well. I believe he was an undrafted free agent, though. So in the back of the third, we went cornerback in Ifeatu Melifonwu from Syracuse, and then we went with the wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC in the fourth. I actually like the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick quite a bit. I like him as a player. I liked watching him at USC. I think he was a really solid pick there for the Lions in the fourth round, especially considering I think there were quite a few grades that had him mocked up into the third round. So it might even have been a little bit of a steal of talent there. I mean, NFL.com had him late second, early third.
Exactly. Like I think you might have gotten a little bit of a steal of talent there in Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially in the fourth round.
Yeah, and I am surprised that he's the only receiver we picked, but Brad Holmes, after day one, he seemed pretty adamant that they're going with a pretty strong best player available strategy the rest of the way. He said if the next three guys we take are offensive tackles, and the next three guys we take are offensive tackles. And I mean, obviously that wasn't the case, but it was pretty true to best player available. They took two straight defensive tackles and then another and then a cornerback. So
I mean, I like we had said all from the beginning, it made sense for the Lions to go best player available. And
You have
and
a lot of needs, especially on defense. So,
and it was smart in my mind for the Lions to build from within as well. I mean, they needed to go. They had so many holes. They were never going to fill all of them in one draft.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt about that. So they were going to shore up in areas where they kind of looked at their shopping list, so to speak, and just kind of checked things off the list by taking the best player available in that spot. And the list was so, there's so many positions they could have gone that they could have gone best player available in any position, frankly.
Yeah.
And they would have successfully been able to tick a box off the list of their shopping list of what they need to rebuild this roster. I don't know if you saw the video of the Eagles war room when they got their draft pick Milton Williams, the edge rusher from Louisiana Tech in the third round. Did you see that video?
I saw the video of the Lions war room when we got to nice school.
Yeah, they went nuts. It was awesome. Very animated. Loved it. Brad Holmes was going nuts. It's being thought that the Lions spoiled the day for the Philadelphia Eagles in the third round by taking Aleem McNeil. So when we took Aleem McNeil, the defense tackle from NC State, apparently he was like supposedly the number one guy on the Eagles draft board. And so what they actually did was they traded back. They actually had the pick two picks in front of the Lions. They could have gotten their guy then, but they apparently figured that they would be able to drop back a few picks and still get their guy. Well, they dropped back 3 picks, which normally in most cases is pretty safe. Dropped back 3 picks, added some more picks in their repertoire in a swap with the Panthers to go from 6 to 9. Well, the video showed a very not excited director of scouting when they grabbed their guy in Milton Williams, the edge rusher from Louisiana Tech. And it looked like the GM, Howie, he's known as Howie, and him kind of got into a little bit after they shook hands, after they kind of high-fived after the pick. They were kind of going through a little back and forth, and they did not look happy. And it's believed that their guy that they wanted was Aleem McNeil, and the Lions took him, and they could have had him, but the Lions spoiled it. So I thought that was pretty funny. I liked it.
They're like, there's no way the Lions are going to take a defense tackle. They just took one.
Right.
We're safe. Nope.
So one of the other things that I really like about some of these picks, and I'm going to zero in on the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick in particular, is the guy pulling the trigger for the Lions in this draft is Brad Holmes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Looking at the receivers that he's been involved in developing and bringing up over in LA, and primarily Cooper Kupp, the guy clearly has an eye for talent at that position. And Robert Woods wasn't exactly a top flight wide receiver when he was with, I believe it was Buffalo, wasn't he?
He spent some time with the Raiders. I think he spent some time in Buffalo.
Either way, wherever they got him from, he wasn't exactly regarded as a top flight wide receiver. Now he's a Big Ten threat every single down.
He spent time with the Chargers too, I believe.
I think you might be right. But either way, it clearly shows that Brad Holmes, who was involved in bringing in guys like that, especially Cooper Kupp, because he was one of the heads of scouting for college talent over there. That gets me a little bit more excited about a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, because I know that means that if Brad Holmes really wanted him and he was willing to get him right there, that he knows that kid's got some talent, is going to have a chance to succeed. So that's one of the things I liked a lot about that. But, overall, I was honestly pretty happy with the way that the Lions draft went down. Were the names sexy? No. Not at all. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was a very unsexy pick. They were all very unsexy picks. Outside of maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, but that's a 4th-round pick. When is a 4th-round pick ever sexy?
Yeah.
But they really zeroed in on a philosophy. And that's the first time I can really say, at least since the Bob Quinn era started, that the Lions clearly had a philosophy, and they are going to stick to it and put all their chips in that philosophy. And that's to build from within. And they have a direction. And it seems like a really good direction because, well, it's smart. It's how teams win. When the Cowboys were winning the NFC East and successful with Dak at his best and Zeke Elliott at his best, what was the primary catalyst to that? They had the best offensive line in football. The Lions have a chance to do that now as well. And that's what's got me excited about it. They're not sexy picks.
No.
But they're smart.
And let's not forget, it's not like the Lions just kind of sat around and kind of waited for things to happen. They did trade up to get
a 7th round pick.
Derek Barnes out of the linebacker out of Purdue.
I know, and
I honestly think for where you got him, I think he's also a solid pick and could really help us out at linebacker. I remember in the draft coverage when they announced the pick, they were talking about how the dude just is all over the field, and he is a extremely good, basically a tackling machine. So, and I have
flashbacks to Jared Davis with that one.
I'm
all over the field and a tackle machine.
But the difference is you got this guy in the 4th round versus the first round.
Yes.
But no, he's like actually the only guy in this draft that I recognize just on name. And I think that's probably a Big Ten connection, but
the only guy in the draft. Oh, that we grabbed?
Yeah.
Even over Penei Sewell?
I said outside of Penei Sewell. Okay.
You don't recognize Amon-Ra St. Brown?
No.
You clearly didn't watch any Pac-12 football.
I did not watch any USC football.
Okay. That probably is a Big Ten connection, but I do think Derek Barnes was a good pick. The linebacker grouping is one that desperately needed some overhaul. I hope Derek Barnes can come in there and be the guy that starts the overhaul there. It almost seemed like the linebacker grouping was almost an afterthought this offseason, mainly because they really didn't do much to change it outside of draft Derek Barnes, because we are rolling in still with Jelani Tavai, Jamie Collins, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin, none of which are moves from this regime. And now you have Derek Barnes to add to that. So I hope he's a guy who can play some effective downs for the Lions this upcoming year and for the future. Maybe replace some of the guys out there, whether it be Jalen Reeves-Maybin or Jelani Tavai. If he's where he finds himself more comfortable, interior or exterior. We'll find out. But it's a step in the right direction in terms of the linebacking group as well. So I definitely feel quite a bit more comfortable with it in that regard. Agreed.
But yeah, like you said before, overall, I love the philosophy that we had in this draft. There was a clear direction, and it's kind of similar to Troy Weaver's draft, where there is a common thread between all these picks, just like there was a common thread between Troy Weaver's picks, and that he got some really hard-nosed defensive guys who work hard, play hard, and kind of have this grit that embodies the city of Detroit. Kind of the same thing here with Brad Holmes' first draft. So I think there's a lot of similarities between the guys we got. They're all grinders. They all like to punch you in the teeth. So I'm liking the philosophy we're setting here. I'm liking the culture.
I'm not going to lie to you. On paper, the Lions' defensive line looks pretty damn good. Just on paper. Mm-hmm. Like, you're looking at Romeo Okwara, who is a guy who can get you double-digit sacks. Mm-hmm. Trey Flowers is a guy who we expected him to get you double-digit sacks, just based on what we saw with New England. Michael Brockers, who is a multiple-time Pro Bowler, I believe.
Yep.
I think he's been to a couple. And then you add in Aleem McNeil, and you also have Levi Onwuzurike as well. I mean, the defensive line on paper, I'm pointing that out with, on paper is bolded, highlighted, you name it. But it looks pretty good.
For Brockers. I'm surprised.
None? Really?
None. I am surprised. I could swear he was.
Well, he's known as a consummate pro, and one of the, he's a really good defensive lineman, or was.
No, I agree. He was on the all-rookie team, if that counts for anything.
No. One guy I do think is that this draft needs to be a little bit of a wake-up call for him is Amani Oruwariye.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say this is because they brought in Ifeatu Melifonwu, who projects to kind of come in as kind of a rotational outside corner, with Amani Oruwariye as also a rotational outside corner. What do you think? Obviously Oruwariye had a good start to the season last year and then just kind of fell off a table and got exposed in a lot of ways. Do you think Oruwariye takes this as being stabbed in the back? How do you think he responds to a rookie being taken here?
It's not like we took him with a super high pick. It was still, I believe, was it late third that we got him? Or was it? Yeah, I think it was late third. Anyway,
I believe you're right.
I don't think he's going to take it as a slight. I do believe that it is the coaches hoping for some training camp competition and trying to kind of light a fire in his ass a little bit. But I don't think it's not like we took another first round cornerback and are clearly trying to squeeze him out. I don't think that's the case. So I think if anything, this should motivate him. And if not, then I'd have questions about his character and probably better off that we would part ways with him. But I'm looking for him to take another step up this year. And hopefully this motivates him to do that.
No, I agree. I would hope it motivates him as well. He's a guy who's probably going to be competing for a starting job between Jeff Okudah and Quentin Dunbar. I think he has to kind of step up and try to be one of the top 2 corners or top 3 corners in that secondary this year, because this is kind of the year that you really need him to. I mean, he had his first year where he really wasn't even on the field. And then his second year where he showed up at times and got just demolished at other times. Mm-hmm. So now he's in his third year, and this is really where he needs to earn his next contract. And
yeah, he's fine to start this year. So
according to ESPN, he's not. Quentin Dunbar is ahead of him, along with Jeff Okudah, and on ESPN, which I understand.
I would think Jeff Okudah's on one side and Aurora is on the other. Instead of both Quentin Dunbar and Okudah and Aurora all on the same side.
No, they've got Dunbar on the opposite side. They've got Dunbar and Okudah on the opposite side. And then Arouarier on Okudah's side behind them.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's at least what ESPN has. Obviously, we have no idea what the depth chart's going to be. These are all projected. These are all projected. And training camp's going to decide it. And I would hope Arouarier takes a step up and becomes a guy who can take a starting job. I do think he is going to be competing for it. Whether or not he wins it, I don't know. I mean, which Arouarier are we going to see in training camp? Are we going to see a lot of the inconsistency that we saw last year, or are we going to see him take a step up and become more of the consistent cornerback that we hoped he would develop into? So I am curious to see how the interactions between the rookie in Melifonwu and Arouarier come to be, but we'll find out. This training camp is going to be an exciting one, if you ask me, because I'll be looking because these rookies are going to get an opportunity to play for some meaningful downs, play for some, get after and compete for some meaningful playing time in this season, because there's a lot of holes that these rookies can fill. All
right. Now, just to kind of piggyback off the draft, let's see if you have anything else to add on the draft.
No, that pretty much covers it.
Now that we have one draft in the books for Brad Holmes, we got one in the books for Weaver. Then you got Stevie Y. I'm eliminating Avila from this conversation.
Why?
Which of these 3 GMs would you say has been your favorite so far? Like, who do you have the most? If you had to say you had the most confidence in one of them, who would it be? You think?
I think I'm going to stick with the guy I've said pretty much all along, and it's Stevie Y. Mm-hmm. I think there's a clear vision and direction there, and I think there is a clear dude knows what he's doing, and it's obvious, and it's also proven that he knows what he's doing. After what we saw with Tampa Bay and what he's done so far with the Red Wings, sure, they're not a good team yet, but he's made good moves. He gave Anthony Mantha the contract that he wanted, maybe not had quite deserved yet, but that he wanted in the offseason. And it was actually a pretty good team-friendly contract as well, especially if Mantha panned out to be what he was supposed to be. And then what does Stevie Y do? See, he's not coming and showing up for that contract, so he trades him out of town. He doesn't care who you are, how much you make, what you mean to the city, what you mean to the organization. If you're not performing, you're not here to help the team win, you're gone. And that's one of the things I respect the most about him is he doesn't have this faux loyalty to these players that people think that exists in sports. It doesn't. Not anymore. Loyalty doesn't exist in sports anymore. Not between teams, not between players. So for Stevie Y to come in and tell you that an apple's an apple and prove to you that an apple's an apple, it's refreshing to see. And it shows you that he, one, knows what he's doing, two, that there's a direction there, and that he's got an idea of where he wants these players to be and when he wants them to be there. And if they're not there, he's going to find someone who's going to get there. And that's exactly what he did with Mantha. And the way that he's constructed the roster, I think he's found a lot of good young talent. And I'm excited to see what the future is for the Red Wings because, I mean, you see glimpses every now and then. And they've played... Now, this year's been a really tough year for them overall. They've won more games than they did all of last year already. Granted, they've only got like 7 games left, but that's also in a season that had only 54 games versus the 82.
Yeah.
So they've obviously had a much better year. Granted, the roster was also much better, but you also got to preface that by saying that this team has only had their regular starting lineup, like their full healthy lineup, in one game all year.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a plethora of injuries all over the ice and all up and down the bench. Plus, you had the COVID issues and things like that. But they've been competitive in most of these games. Not all. There's been some bad ones, but I like the way that Stevie Wise is building things and just the philosophy that he has in the mindset. Brad Holmes certainly did a lot to bring confidence in him, but I have to.
If you ask me, Brad Holmes has done nothing wrong so far.
He hasn't. He hasn't. I agree.
He's done everything right.
But at the same time, you can also say he hasn't actually done anything right yet because we don't know. We don't know if any of these guys are going to be anything. Right. That's
why I'm not picking Brad Holmes, because it's too early to say he's one of my most confidence in. It's almost a loaded question against him because of that. But the fact that he's even in the conversation right now is a testament to how well he's done in his first offseason. So.
I 100% agree. Brad Holmes did a lot in this offseason, starting with the Stafford trade, moving on to some of the other moves he made, and then you talk about the drafts and the philosophies that he had there. It has the makings, and it shows the makings of a guy who knows how to build a roster and knows how to run a team the right way and how to create a winning franchise. And that's something that's got me excited. How good is his talent recognition is something that we'll find out as the season progresses and offseason and we go into next year and in the future. But in the right here, right now, he has instilled some confidence in him from me. Yeah.
And for my pick, I'll go with Troy Weaver because I have been absolutely in love with his fearlessness and decisiveness as a GM. I mean, he overturned basically the entire roster in one off season, then half an actual season. And his draft picks in his first draft, first of all, the aggressiveness that he showed in the first draft to trade back into the first round twice. I mean, I don't remember ever seeing that as a Detroit fan in any of our four major sports.
Just refresh my memory on those, and I'll let you finish after that. But refresh my memory. Yeah. What exactly did he give up to move back into the first round both times?
Kennard.
Yep.
I believe was one of them. And then we traded a heavily protected first that probably won't parlay until it's a second round pick in like 7 years.
Okay.
So I can't remember if it was Bruce Brown or Luke Kennard. I think it was Luke Kennard that we traded to.
I know Bruce Brown was involved in one of those trades too, or some trade.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a draft. I don't think it was a draft trade. I think it was something different.
He was basically taking Stan Van Gundy's groceries and throwing them out the window is what he was doing.
Exactly. He wiped his ass the roster as soon as he came in. But and then just the sheer number of draft picks and seeing how he's hit on how these draft picks have all performed. It's got me really excited, and the guys he's bringing in. I mean, who would have thought Frank Jackson is going to be doing what Frank Jackson's doing? The guy is a scoring machine, and it's scaring me.
Yes, he has been fun and refreshing, but do you really think he does it on any other team that's actually a good team? Because I'm not sure I do.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's a product of...
He gets his 25 minutes a night, and he just makes it rain for 25 minutes.
Yeah, but he's asked to. He's asked to.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the only scorers that the Pistons have on their bench. If he's put on a team that has scoring talent on their bench, does he actually do a damn thing, or even does he even see the floor? Is my question.
So
how much of this is a product of the fact that we have nobody else?
So are you saying that you don't envision Frank Jackson moving as part of the team moving forward as we continue building this? Because I can easily see him as a. I think he's
earned a spot and an opportunity, no question. Mm-hmm. Hell, I'd give him a contract right now if he just stopped freaking scoring night in, night out.
And also, I had heard this came out. I think it was last week that we'd actually tried to. There was mutual interest between the Pistons and Frank Jackson in the offseason. And I don't know what fell through that they didn't actually get a deal done.
Pistons wanted to give him the bare minimum contract that they possibly could because that's probably what he was worth. No,
Did we bring him in on a two-way when we brought him in?
I think they did. Don't get me wrong. I think Frank Jackson. Well, we probably brought him in on a two-way, and he was willing to take that because he couldn't find a job elsewhere. At the time, maybe he had other offers, or he had tons of two-way offers, and he was holding out for a real job. That might have been it. But either way,
Now I'm blanking. How did we get Frank Jackson?
I think it was a two-way contract on a mid-year signing. I think it started with a 10-day, didn't it? And then they gave.
So I'm about to find out, but keep going.
But like I like Frank Jackson as a player, but
I type Frank Jackson. The first thing that comes up on Google is Frank Jackson's hair.
But at the same time, like I don't know, would he actually be if he was actually as good as we're seeing now? Why wasn't he on a roster? 1 and 2. Can this actually continue once we get some real talent on this roster? You know, if this team starts showing guys who can score off the bench, where does Frank Jackson fit in? Or if we end up getting a guy like Cade Cunningham or Jalen Suggs, where does Frank Jackson fit in at that point, especially if Killian Hayes develops?
Yeah.
You know, so, and because are you going to take Frank Jackson over Killian Hayes? Right now, I'd probably say no.
No, I wouldn't. It's just a sheer. I feel like we know what Frank Jackson is. Even though he's still young, he just turned 23, so he's still young. But I think in terms of we know what he is in terms of he's a really good scorer, a decent defender, not much of a facilitator.
Right. And I don't know if you can consider him a really good scorer. He's a good scorer when given the opportunity. It's just he's got to earn that opportunity and continue earning that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, if Cade Cunningham comes out here, Frank Jackson ain't getting the ball as much. You know what I mean?
That's going to be an interesting dynamic to see, though, if we do, by the grace of the basketball lottery gods, land Cade Cunningham, just how... not that I care, because I'm taking him at 1 no matter what, but just how him and Killian Hayes will mesh as a backcourt, because those are two primary ball handlers in the same backcourt. It'd be interesting.
Now, how much, going back to what you had said about how Troy Weaver is your favorite because of how he's hit on the draft picks, and I'll agree with you in the cases of Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. Inconsistency is kind of a common theme with them right now, but the rookies, I expect it. Killian Hayes, on the other hand, albeit didn't get a full year to showcase, really hasn't gotten a year to develop, but in a lot of games this year, he's shown a lack of maturity and an inability to really shoot the basketball for the life of him, frankly. I mean, dude can't shoot for shit right now. Does that at all worry you about Troy Weaver's talent recognition, considering that was like his guy? Like that was his guy going into the draft. Now, I know it's way too early to say knock Killian Hayes at all, but still, we've seen guys like Saddiq Bey and like Isaiah Stewart flourish at times. We've yet to really see Killian Hayes flourish for more than a game. Yeah,
I mean, the one obvious thing I'll point out is like Saddiq Bey is a whole 3 years older than Killian Hayes.
That is the one. Yes,
he looks like a damn veteran out there. But no, like with Saddiq Bey, I think a lot of it is decision making with him, and not in terms of playmaking. It's decision making with his shot.
Saddiq or Killian?
Killian. First of all, there's nights where he'll have an open lane and just refuses to look for a shot and just consistently is looking to find teammates. It's like he can only focus on finding teammates and not focus on finding a shot, or only focus on finding a shot and not focus on finding teammates. And I think that's something that'll come as the game comes to him a little more. But also when he does try to find his shot, you see him a lot of the times like he'll have a direct shot to the rim, but he'll shy away from contact and force himself into a worse shot because of that. So I think as he gets more of a feel for a game, he's going to be getting better looks. And from there, I think you'll see his percentage go up. There's also the fact that he's going to have to work on his jumper a bit more. But I'm talking about just in terms of attacking the basket. That baseline, you're gonna see a higher field goal percentage just off that, as long as he learns to attack the basket and read the defense a little better in terms of his offensive game. But
so I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I actually do like Killian Hayes a lot. But the two things you just mentioned are clear and obvious signs of a guy who just is not a scorer in any way. A guy who is a natural scorer, finds his shot, and always looks to shoot first.
I didn't say he's a natural scorer.
Well, but he's the opposite of that from what I've seen and from what that's evidence of right there. Like he's not a guy who can score based on that. And the fact that he's not taking the open shot or when he's got the open lane or the open shot and he doesn't take it, he's so focused on trying to pass the ball. Sure, that's a selfless thing and it's nice to have selfless teammates, but at the same time, that shows that really kind of tells you that the game's moving way too damn fast for him right now, that he's trying to just focus in on one aspect as opposed to just taking what's being given to him.
And I think a lot of it's going to come with confidence, too.
And I do, too. Don't get me wrong. I still have a lot of faith in Killian Hayes. I just haven't seen as much development as I was hoping out of him this year. But again, he did miss a majority of the season because of the hip injury. So he hasn't really gotten a chance to develop at all. And he didn't really have the offseason repertoire either. But I'm not even going to put any merit to that because when you've got some of these other rookies who also didn't have an offseason to train with the team, also didn't get a combine or anything like that, when you've got these guys, these rookies out there, same age, same position, and they're succeeding massively, and he's not, that says more about him than it does the lack of an offseason. That says that he's not able to pick it up and get it going, whereas other players, his peers are not.
Well, I will say, aside from his shot, just if you take the games before his injury versus after, there is a noticeable difference in his playmaking ability and in his ability to read an offense. But again, that shot needs to get working on just being more of an offensive threat, or because at a certain point that playmaking is no longer going to work in the NBA if you're not an offensive threat at any level.
Right, so, and that's kind of one of the things that I'm most worried about as well is if he's not able to develop any semblance of an offensive game at all. I mean, even Rajon Rondo is an offensive threat in some way. I mean, he has somehow developed a 3-point shot a little bit. He's always been able to attack the basket a little bit and create penetration. But if teams look at Killian Hayes and say, "Oh, he's no threat to shoot," and if he does shoot, who cares? It's a free rebound at that point. Then his game's never going to work because teams are just going to sag off of him so much that it's whatever. They're going to give him the Draymond treatment half the time. Granted, Draymond's one of the best facilitators and player offensive minds in the league, and he's totally bad at comparison. But if teams ignore him, well, he's got the ball in his hands to the point where they're just going to go after. Maybe they'll put doubles on Cade Cunningham or doubles on Jeremy Grant or shade his way and just ignore Killian with the basketball, and he's not able to produce out of that. Well, he's not going to work then. He's not going to make it in this league if that happens. So he definitely has to develop some semblance of an offensive threat, whether it be an ability to drive the lane and not shy away from contact or, God forbid, hit a damn 3-ball once in a lifetime. That's what's really going to be important and something I'm going to be looking for from year 1 to year 2 with his development is, can he develop an offensive weapon? Can he be a guy that's more than just a passer, more than just a facilitator? He's got to be able to see the game for what it is in front of him, more so than just focus on running the offense or trying to find the open man. He's got to be able to see what's being given to him, and that's kind of what sets some of these players apart. The guys that have the top-notch recognition and awareness with the ball in their hands are the guys that succeed so much in this league. And that's not something I've seen him pick up just yet. And I think he can, because he does at times show me an ability to find that open man and make the good play. He does show it. So I know it's in him. He's just got to be able to do it a little more consistently. But so going back to my question, though, let's say if Killian Hayes doesn't end up panning out to what we want him to be. He's okay, but not a guy that's going to be a change, bring a wave of change into this organization for the future. Does that knock your grade on Troy Weaver at all? Yeah,
but it's going to be a couple years before we find that out. But yeah, if Troy Weaver's first draft pick in the first round ends up being just mediocre, like if we find out that guys like Tyrese Halliburton and Cole Anthony become,
both of those guys look better than Killian Hayes right now.
I wouldn't say Cole Anthony. I'd say
Cole Anthony's shown some games, especially lately, where he's really stepped up.
He's had games.
He's had a lot of games.
But like if we see that and like they seem to be they continue to be on a complete different level than Killian Hayes, then yeah, I would question it, because you brought him in as a guy who was not for talent, and his first draft pick, he took not even the second or third, maybe not even fourth best point guard off the board. But that time will tell. Right now, I still agree with the Killian Hayes pick, and I do think I just think he's got a little bit to go in development, but I think it's there. He's got to capture it.
I don't necessarily disagree with that pick. I'm not as 100% sold on Killian Hayes as you may be. Again, I do like the player. I do like his potential, but there are other guys that were available when we took Killian Hayes that I may want right now. Tyrese Halliburton looks like a pretty damn good player right now.
Yeah.
Damn good. And I know you and I both were trashing him.
We trashed him.
Because, it primarily was, we trashed him because of that shot. It is so damn ugly. I cringe looking at it. I'll be honest with you. I cringe looking at it. But he makes it. It goes in. Why? Yeah. But Tyrese Halliburton on this team would give it a very different look, and I honestly think it would open things up even more for guys like Sadiq Bey and Jeremy Grant and Isaiah Stewart down low, and that would be pretty nice to have. But either way, I'm not going to write off Killian Hayes yet. I know it sounds like I am. I'm not, because again, I do think he's got a lot of potential, and I do think it's there.
Yeah, let's put up a reminder. Nick is playing devil's advocate here.
I am. I do think he can be successful in this league, and I want him to be, obviously. I do have a lot of faith in Troy Weaver and his talent recognition, and I want Killian Hayes to succeed. I want him to be the best point guard to come out of that draft, and I'm not necessarily saying I think he will, but I think he's got a good shot because I like the tools that he has.
Agreed.
But man, does he ever have to develop that shot.
Yeah.
I can shoot about a 3-pointer than that man right now.
Well, you told me you can shoot 25% of the league?
Maybe.
But yeah, dude, I was just speaking of the Pistons real quick, I was ready to declare the tank dead until the last couple games, and the fact that we lost Orlando kind of saved it.
Now
and,
they're still second to last now, right?
We're second to last. We got a game separating us too, so it's just we still have a really easy schedule. If we could pick up a few more losses, the schedule kind of picks up down the road, but we got to pick up a few more losses against bad teams.
So my question
tonight being one of them.
My question is, how long before the NBA starts to really take notice of the obvious tank job by the Pistons? Because straight up, Mason Plumlee has sat out for rest for a week now. How much rest does one man need?
I mean, Josh Jackson sat out for a toothache today.
Exactly. I've never heard of a man sitting out, and it's not even on the injury designation. It literally says rest. How much rest does one man need before the league says, all right, get your ass in the game? I know he's not LeBron or Kawhi, and so they don't care that Plumlee rests, but dude, it's almost obvious at this point how much they're throwing the end of the bench out on the floor to start because they're literally sitting everybody else.
And Orlando was just as shameless.
They were. And look what they did at the deadline. They gave up every single player that they had any talent on the roster.
Openly communicate to the rest of the league. All right, tanks in session. But even the Hornets are sitting a bunch of guys against us tonight. I mean, Miles Bridges, okay, he was exposed to COVID. He's got to sit. But Devontae Graham, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington. Those are three starters right there.
Yeah, but they're still playing LaMelo Ball, who just came off of an injury, and I believe he's on the second leg of a back-to-back as well. They're also still playing Terry Rozier. They still got good talent out there.
Yeah, that's the two. That's the two starters that are still here.
The Pistons don't. Sure, we've got Sadiq and Isaiah Stewart, but beyond that, and those are rookies. So who knows what you're getting out of them night in, night out.
You could be getting a 30-point game out of Sadiq. You could be getting a 9-point game.
Or worse.
That's so.
All depends on how he shoots, really, or if he shoots. I'll tell you right now, seeing Josh Jackson not start last night, I was a little bit upset.
Yeah,
well, that's for other reasons. It's an obvious tank job, and I'm glad for it.
It's about damn time that we obviously tanked.
There's no reason for us not to be. We're already eliminated from the playoffs. There's no chance we're fighting for anything right now. You're fighting to be the best loser.
You got some top tier talent coming in, so
got to get a top 3 pick.
How much do you think a guy how much do you think a guy like Cade Cunningham jumpstarts this rebuild?
I'd even suffice to say that we've already jump-started this rebuild with what we got with Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey, but
Dude, your core of Kay Cunningham at the 1, Sadiq at the 3, and Isaiah Stewart at the 5. That's
and then you have Jeremy Grant. Like people write him off and forget about him. 1, because he hasn't played in a month. 2,
I just forgot about him.
Exactly. 2, because he's not one of the rookies that has taken the world by storm. But you're looking at a team that can start competing pretty damn quickly.
Yeah.
Like real quickly, especially if we see the development of Killian Hayes and continued development of Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey, and Cade Cunningham is as good as advertised. I mean, that's team Cade Cunningham's second year. They're ready to win. Like they're ready to go. They're gonna have cap space. They're gonna probably bring somebody else in to fill any holes that they have left. And guess what? It'll be pretty damn good at that point. Like, damn good.
You could say the same thing about the Lions. We got 2 first-round picks each in the next 2 years. We can parlay that into basically building the roster how we want.
Granted, it's a lot easier to rebuild an entire team with 1 pick in basketball than it is in football, but still.
Agreed. 100%. Well, the future's looking bright in the Motor City, finally.
Yes, it is. We may actually start to see some winning sporting events in this city for the first time in, a decade? I think I saw a stat that the Lions have the last season over 500 in Detroit, and I just kind of gave a sad face when I saw that.
What season was that?
I don't even know. I really don't. Their last 9-7 season, probably. But whatever it is, though, either way, as the lottery gets closer, start wearing your pajamas inside out, sleep with a seashell under your pillow, whatever you do to create luck.
I'm going to be so scared.
I am too. I'm nervous. But do whatever you can to create some luck so that we can get the ping pong balls to fall in our way. Just put a freezing cold one so it falls faster out of the tube at the number 1 pick than anybody else's. That's what we need. Adam Silver, just rig it for us like you do every other year. But opposite, because you rig it against us every year.
Just put yourself in position for a top 4. That's really all I can ask. Just get in that top. I mean, obviously we want the top pick, but just get in that top 4. I think the talent drop off starts at 4, whereas most people think it starts at 5. I think it starts at 4. So
yeah, I kind of agree with that. I'm not sold on Kuminga. I am increasingly becoming more and more sold on guys like Jalen Green, but Kuminga just hasn't quite gotten there for me yet. Jesus.
Dude, I just heard I don't know if you saw this. It was an article that came out. I can't remember if it was a scout or a GM or what, but they said that if Jalen Green had actually decided to go to college instead of the G League, that you would actually have an actual debate for number 1 pick this year.
It's possible. I don't know. I think this is the first year where you're starting to get a real test of what this G League situation can be, where guys are going straight to the G League. But I think it'll develop more and more into a legitimate scouting option for these organizations. Yeah, because this is more of the trial year. I think you're going to get more of a realistic look at it as years go by. But before we close things out, I don't know if you saw this. I know I tweeted. I know I texted it to you. But did you see LeBron's comments on the play-in tournament?
Oh yeah,
where he said that whoever thought of this idea was the worst idea ever. Whoever thought of it should be fired. Yeah. Someone pulled receipts on LeBron, going back to some interviews where just last year, almost a year, it was a year and a month, almost, not even a little over a year and a month ago, where LeBron said that a play-in tournament is a must, because if you don't, it discredits the teams that won, had really good years and won 50, 60 games. So now that LeBron is on the receiving end of the play-in tournament at this point, because they are the number 7 seed right now, I believe, he doesn't like it, but he did before. Does that not make him look like a bitch or what?
Now, in LeBron's defense, I do think he was referring specifically to the COVID year of how they're going to handle playoffs.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure he was talking about everything.
But I still think, like, a play-in tournament is a play-in tournament is a play-in tournament. And if you were for it last year, why are you suddenly against it? I mean, you're allowed to change your minds, but
because he might not win a title for it. He might not actually get a chance to go to the NBA Finals because it's a one and done. Yeah. He's playing how many Game 7s? He shouldn't be worried about it. He really shouldn't. Either way, though, it just made him look like
you're the greatest player in the world. You shouldn't be worried about anything.
It made him look like the biggest bitch I've ever seen. And for that reason, he is not, has not, and will never be on the same level as Michael Jordan. Because you would never, ever hear Michael say that ever. And now I'm loving all the comparisons of all these like all-timers coming out and saying that LeBron's not even at the same table as him, never has been. It's just that it was never even an argument. It's just funny to see all these guys come out all of a sudden and start saying stuff now. But don't get me wrong, I respect the hell out of LeBron's game. I think he's one of the greats ever. But ooh, man, does those comments not look good?
It's just when you're up against guys like Kobe and Michael, they have like all-time competitive drives, and it's just I feel like LeBron, he's had his moments, he just doesn't come anywhere near that.
He right, and that's a good way to put it. Is he's had his moments where he's put himself on that level of competitive drive and that venom to win, but over the whole of his career, he hasn't always had it. Versus guys like Michael and Kobe have always had it. Like, they played almost every game as if it was Game 7 of an NBA Finals. Like, LeBron's taking nights off. And even in the playoffs, he's taking nights off or entire quarters off. But either way, I don't know. But
you're talking about the same guy who said an ankle sprain is going to derail
he's
the rest of his career.
never going to be the same again. Oh, man. Oh, that's great. That's great. Anyways, anything else to add before we close out?
No, that's everything I got.
All right, that's going to call it for this week, guys. Thank you for listening. Curious to hear your thoughts on the draft. Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at RealFanReport. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast for hosting, as always, and we will catch you guys next week. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
We'll see you guys later. Have a good week. Peace out.
Peace.